Let's go. So what's going on, folks? If you haven't already, hit that like button for me. It helps me out a lot. Hit that hype button, the reactions, all that good stuff. Helps me out tremendously. So if you're new here, welcome to All Bass Creations, Effects, Tutorials, Demos, and Review. So today we're going to be going through a few bass filter settings that'll help you guys. I think a lot of times we get confused when it comes to bass filters or just filters in general. So first off, filters are actually made out of delays, and that's something I learned from the good folks over at Maris. Switch over to the pedal board view for you guys. Learn that from the folks at Maris. But you know, pretty much all a filter is doing is sweeping the frequency, whether that be the low frequencies, the high frequencies, or a bandwidth, which would be a notch that you determine it sweeps, right? So let's go through a few settings. I actually went through a few different filters there from a few different companies. So we went through the Source Audio Spectrum filter here. Then we went to the MXR bass synth. A lot of people don't know you can actually use this as a chorus and a bass envelope filter or an LFO filter. And the POG 3, we use that one actually as like a wah. So which one is that? That is in the Maris Enzo X. So I'm actually controlling this filter with my foot. Right, and then we have another envelope filter. Gets rid of that. All right, let's go to here. to this. I'm trying to think which one. Go ahead, put in the chat. I appreciate all y'all chiming in. For some reason, my chat's not coming to my computer. Don't think I'm ignoring you guys. I definitely appreciate all the compliments. What's going on, all you folks over on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, all that good stuff. Hit that like button for me, of course. And thank you. I appreciate all the compliments. Thank you. Yeah, and definitely, take care of yourself. I'm sorry to hear that you had a stroke. Just make sure that you take good care of yourself. You know what I'm saying? And bass music always helps heal. So it's good that you back playing bass. We glad that you still amongst the bass community. What's going on? So feel free to ask questions, all that good stuff. Let me know if y'all got any questions directly. So I know a lot of you guys have one of these filters. Also have things like the MXR bass filter, the Electro-Harmonix Blurst, which is a great LFO analog filter, and the bass balls. But I think it'll be easier to show you guys on these pedals. So let me see where I can start with a good. Well, let's start with filter cutoff, right? So let's go to something easy to show you on. Let's do the MXR bass filter for this right here. Right now I got it set for that. Let me actually turn this up just a bit. Right, so of course, in order to use this as a bass envelope filter, you have to literally turn the dry all the way down. Right, if I have these synth in there, it's going to give me all the synth voices. If I don't want to use those, turn those completely off. And turn off the mod. So if you have the mod on, it's going to add the chorus, which you might want to use later. But right now we got it set as an envelope filter. Right? So the cutoff is going to determine that higher frequency cutoff. Right? I got a lot of I have the resonance up a lot. We'll talk about resonance in a minute. Hopefully you guys can hear that sweeping there. Let's go back here. So this pretty much determines the top part of your filter. You see now we're in the sub territory. Basically all the sub frequencies. We bring that up a bit. Bring it up some more. Right, so decent setting there, and as you can see, I have this resonance up quite a bit. If I turn this resonance off, this filter cutoff almost becomes like in a regular low pass, right? Pretty much cutting out all the high frequencies of my bass. If I turn this frequency up, that's closer to. Now it is still a buffered version of it, so it's not directly my bass sound, and the filter is still running. But when you add that resonance, and I suggest for this application, we're going to use quite a bit. Most filters, you only need about 20 to 30% of the resonance, but because of the way they have this set up, so it's, pretty much it can have subtle resonance or it can have a good amount of heavy resonance. And when you have oscillators running through this, it gets really bright. So that's why they have it set like that. But I like it, around there. also the envelope of the sound. So some pedals like the Enzo X are going to have a full ADSR on them, and that pretty much means attack, decay, sustain, and release of the filter, right? So essentially, this is like a fade in for the filter. You see how it takes the filter longer to sweep? This is going to determine how long your filter takes to sweep. Versus if it's here, really quick. So messing with the attack and the decay of your filter will greatly affect it as well. You know, because the attack is how long it takes. In this case, we're sweeping upwards. So how long it takes to open. So if I have the attack longer for the filter, it's going to take longer to open. Wow, you're going to get that wah sound. But if you want that out, oh, this is actually sweeping down. Sorry. This is sweeping down. Ow. So depending on how fast I have it closing will determine the sound of the overall envelope. See, if you're doing something faster, you may want a quicker envelope. If you're doing something slower, you may want the filter. I'm just going to really make this dramatic. Right? So, and these settings don't just work for the MXR bass filter. They work for, this is just how filters work in general. So the frequency cutoff is going to determine how far up that filter opens, you know, the top end of the filter. The resonance is going to determine how much of those frequencies or that frequency is emphasized. See, if I have it all the way no resonance, no emphasis. Now I'm getting all that. And if I need that to be faster, I want to use the envelope to determine how fast that filter is opening and closing. So, and this works for synths, this works for bass, this works for everything. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So, you know, I get to the differences. I ain't going to forget your question, but I'll actually get to the differences between the MXR bass synth and C4 synth and some of the other synths. But I'll talk about that in a little bit. I just want to stay on topic for now. Right now, we kind of talking about how to set up bass envelope filters or bass filters in general. It's not even just envelope filters. I'm going to show you something else here. So now that you got that, you also have the envelope amount, right? And so on the MXR bass synth, the envelope amount would determine how much the filter opens and in which direction. So if it's at noon, right, if it's at noon, it's going to sweep down. Or if it's below noon, it opens. I just changed something I didn't want to change. Where was that at? Mm-mm. Okay. So you also have the attack. That's just a fade in for the actual sound. But so with this one, you also have the LFO. So if you hold down the voice button here, turn the mod. Now we're gonna turn on. Now it's not an envelope filter. See if I can completely get the envelope filter out. So if you seems as if you turn this envelope all the way off there, you won't have any of the envelope. So now we got, yeah. Now we got a LFO filter. I mean, LFO bass filter. Right, and I can slow that down if I wanted to. And the way I can keep that from going so low, say I don't want it always to do whoop, whoop, whoop like that as much. You pretty much control how the depth of the filter, meaning the lower frequency of the filter, where it's sweeping from with the filter envelope amount. So I already got it opening up, but if I really wanted to go all the way down, there's a difference. So so filters, let me see what we got here. The pedal beside the screen, beside the pedal you're touching. Is that a custom thing? Custom thing? No. That is the Graviton M1. That's a MIDI controller. It's only $150. It's made by Luminite. Definitely check it out. Definitely. I actually did yesterday about my MIDI setup. I'll have to do another one because I know it's a lot of information to take in. And thanks. I appreciate that a lot. But yeah, so essentially, those are the controls of all the envelope filters or all the bass filters. It's not just envelope filters. Like I said, this can be an LFO filter or a envelope filter, depending on how you have it set up. So you can have it doing that, or you can use the envelope to control it. So by essentially messing with those, you're going to get way more options. Even something like, when I'm using my synth sounds, right? The way you really multiply your synth sounds is to be able to affect the filter. So I'll switch over to the Future Impact real quick, right? So we got this. Let's go with, right? If I come over here and I change that attack, see what the attack is on. take a long time. And matter of fact, let's mess with this filter cutoff on here. So that's that frequency cutoff I told you affects those higher frequencies. Definitely affects. If I bring it all the way down, see it's much. That's two different bass sounds, right? Just opening up that filter. Makes a whole difference. Adding resonance is going to really emphasize those frequency sweeps. Whole different bass just from those two things there. Now if I come over here to the envelope depth, see now it's going to swept further down. This is going to affect how much the filter, my dynamics and are affected things, as well as there's a dynamic if I wanted to sweep even further or have more based on the dynamics of my playing. So So now you automatically you bring that filter cutoff back down. Bring that resonance down. Adding too much resonance takes away bottom. You see how all that bottom came back? Now we can open that filter back up. Mass destruction. Which is a whole different bass sound than what we started with. So, when you take into account things like that, your filter can be the difference between you having one sound or having a ton of different sounds, just with the frequency cutoff, the resonance, and then changing how the filter is interacting with your playing, whether it be like we did here, dynamics, or if we're using the exact envelope that we designed in there. So inside of the Future Impact V4 VIP, there is a full ADSR for the filter. So that stands for, again, attack, decay, sustain, and release. So the attack is how long it takes, if the filter's opening, how long it takes to open. Decay is pretty much the time it takes from after it opened to the time when it gets down to where you set the sustain level, which is like the mid frequency. It might be all the way down or pretty much the depth of the filter. Then the release is how long that filter takes to completely close after you've let the note go. So some filters will continue to sweep down, so I hope that made sense to you guys. So let's move on to some other stuff. Let's go to the source audio spectrum. Right, so we got that there. We can play with that frequency cutoff. Right, we can play with the depth of the filter. How much resonance. See, I just added more depth to the filter. I raised the resonance as well, so you can hear that sweep a little bit more. So if I want to let it go all the way down, I can bring that frequency down. Now it doesn't open at all. So just having those few features available to you, the frequency cutoff, the resonance, and things like the depth of the filter, pretty much the frequency cutoff, again, is the top part of the filter. Typically in a low pass filter. We talking low pass filters primarily with bass, right? And we'll actually talk about high pass filters in this same thing, but we'll talk about how you can use that to improve your bass sound as well. But so this particular one, these particular pedals, like the Future Impact and the Spectrum, you kind of gotta have the software open to really get into them. So, I definitely recommend that you spend some time learning the software and things like that. And again, the Spectrum has an envelope side too. You can literally choose different envelopes for this filter. It can be a LFO filter. It's a lot of options on there. So, and you got I think it's 26 different filters in here. So you got tons of different options. Here's another one of mine. And like I said, it changes everything, just changing settings of the depth, frequency, cutoff, things like that. So we'll move over to the Enzo X real quick, because the Enzo X actually has some of the most amazing filters in it, right? So here's my actual one I use for gigs, a lot of times for bass, my raw bass sound. So it's actually an envelope filter right now, but the cool thing about the Enzo X and the Mercury X, because the Mercury X has two of these filters too, the one I'm using on here, I can take that same setting, change the modifier, right? So instead of it going to the envelope, the frequency cutoff going to the envelope, we're going to assign it to the LFO. So we're going to take it off. of here. Yep, bow. Turn this on frequency, cut off. And I can also control how far it's sweeping with the minimum of the LFO and the how high it's sweeping with the maximum of the LFO. I can turn it into a random filter. And this is why you don't need a ton of filters. I try to tell folks, like, a lot of times they think, oh, I need to buy the new filter pedal that came. You don't really need all them joints for real, for real. If you get something like an Enzo X, it's going to have synths. It's going to have even some pitch shifting and stuff in there that's really good, as well as, you know, it's polyphonic and monophonic synth. Plus, all the modulations, the filters, the distortions in there are incredible. So, and you get delay and reverb in there. My favorite algorithm from the Mercury X, they actually put in the Enzo X as well, which is the Prism. So, you know, it is $600, but it will be one of the best $600 you ever spent, especially if you get my preset pack. Speaking of that, you know, check out my preset packs on my Patreon page. Patreon.com/allbasscreations. It has the Future Impact V4 pack on there, 20-something different packs for the Tonex series pedals and software, including combination packs like the JHS Colorbox V2 plus the Ampeg SGT, Colorbox V2 plus the Aguilar AG. So you don't have to spend $700, $800, $900 for that combination of pedal to get the tone. Get your Tonex, get my preset packs, you'll be all set to go. And there's like 10, 11 different preamps pedals on there as well, preamps and bass heads on there. So check that out. Along with the Enzo X, the Mercury X packs, C4 synth pack is on there, and the Zoom B6 MS60B plus, MS70 CDR plus. Check all those packs out on the Patreon. As well as if you want to support the channel, you know, you can do that Patreon, Cash App, Super Chat, all that good stuff works. So, all right, back to it. So we removed it from the LFO. We're going to put it on the SNH, which is like a random filter. And we'll set this to a note division of something. Let's try some triplets. Let's do. And again, you can adjust the lower parts and the higher parts. And again, this is all with my same filter settings. The only thing I'm changing is a lot of times with the different types of filters, it's just in terms of bass pedals, right? So like the difference between like electroharmonics burst and like the bass balls, other than the sound, like how the actual filter is operating, the burst is based off of LFO, like the previous example I just showed you, while the bass balls or the MXR bass filter are dynamic filters. So they're based upon that frequency cutoff is reacting to your actual dynamics of your playing. So that's two of the main differences. LFO is set to a certain speed or a note division. So, excuse me. meaning it's going to oscillate and open. It's going to open and close based on that LFO timing. And in this example right here with the SNH, which is a random sampler type thing, is going to do it based on the time, like an LFO would, or a note division time, right? But it's going to open and close randomly, not just, straight from point A to point B. It's going to open halfway, 25%, 75%. It's just going to be random. And then you can turn it into a sequence filter. And I can change each. I got up to 16 steps I can manipulate here. So instead of the difference between this and the random filter is the random filter is going to calculate all those random values just randomly. The sequencer, when you have the frequency cutoff attached to a sequencer, is going to open and close based on the values you put for each step. So if it's 16 steps, the first step might be 32%. The next step might be 12%. But you notice it's always that same pattern. So basically it allows me to shape the filter, and have it automated, but still shape it in different ways. That's not just open and closing, from point A to point B. I can have, 1 through 16 that I control with it. So that's the basic functions I would say that would worry you the most with a filter. Let me grab. I have the bass envelope filter back here as well. Let me grab that MXR pedal. Sorry about that. Had to grab them real quick. Put these right here. So, grab my baby. If you haven't already, hit that like button. You feel me? So, the reason why I don't have to have all these different envelope filters pedals anymore, like the blurs, and mind you, I still love these pedals. They sound amazing. But for me to carry around this separately to do what this can do with the Enzo X, for me, can do like the job of pretty much all the filters. The same way the Spectrum can, but the Enzo X to me has the best quality filters in it, best sounding filters. I haven't even shown you the other ones. This is all has been one filter, the ladder filter, and I haven't changed the resonance or anything. All I have been doing is changing how the sound, how the filter is being manipulated, particularly the frequency cutoff. Now, you can, with the Enzo X, you can set any of the filter parameters to any of these modifiers. Not only that, you can set up that each modifier, you can come over to the expression pedal set. Oh, I forgot to show y'all that. That's the other way you can control it. The last way, I can come over to the expression pedal, assign it there. Now I got a wah pedal. Take it off on the sequence, so let's take it off of here. Bam. We're going to assign it to the expression pedal. All right. So now I can come over here to the graviton, the Illuminate Graviton M1, and let's add an expression pedal value. I think I want to say it's 118 for the Enzo X, which is channel 3. Let me make sure, let me double check that I got my little list here of MIDI commands. Bam. It's message number 4. 118 is the hold modifier for the Meris pedals. CC message 118. See, now my foot is controlling it. So if I don't want it to drop all the way down there, I could come to the minimum frequency on here, bring up the depth of the filter. Definitely appreciate you, Steffo or MCA, for subscribing. Make sure y'all subscribe if you haven't already. But essentially, and you can see it as it's displaying on the screen here. It's opening and closing. So, all right, let me delete that because I don't want to actually, well, let me just disable that. That's the other cool thing about the Graviton, this Graviton M1. Even if I set up commands and I don't want to use them, but I don't want to have to go back and reprogram it, I can just disable that command under the preset. And you get presets for the expression pedal, and then you get your actual presets for all your pedals combined like this, where I can just go through different stuff. So, yeah, ultimately, let's kind of recap real quick, just so you guys don't get lost here. There's different types of filters, and different filters do have different sounds. But some of the main settings you're going to want to pay attention to is the frequency cutoff, right? And the resonance. You know, typically for bass sounds, we keep the resonance low. A lot of bass pedals already have that in mind. So even when you push them, the resonance, say on here, even when you push it up a lot, it's still not as resonant as it could get. You know, so they keep it within a certain range because they know everybody doesn't have a lot of experience with filter pedals. However, you know, you need that. Then you want to consider the shape of the filter, so the attack and decay times of the filter primarily. Then you want to, and that determines, again, if the filter is opening, how long it takes to open and is the attack, and how long it takes to close is the decay of the filter. Then you have the envelope amount or direction. You know, I would think of that as direction on a lot of pedals. You know, which way is that opening? Which way is it opening and it closing? How far is it opening, or how far is it going down to close? Come up, or how far is it going down to close? You know. All that's going to be in the filter envelope amounts in different pedals if that's available. Then you also have to consider stuff like the future impact that has dynamic feature in there, and the Enzo X, where you can have it based on the envelope of you playing the sound, basically the dynamics of your playing. Then you can have it based on a LFO, like the Blurst, which is just setting it to a certain time. And you can have a random filter, like in the Enzo X, they have the SNH. Also, I know in the Zoom MS70 CDR Plus, they have ran a bunch of different types of filters in there that are really good. Random filters, comb filters, all that different stuff. And usually these same settings apply to all these different filters. It's just they sound different. So that's something to pay attention to. All right. And I think that's really it. Like, those are the main things. Oh, the blend. Yeah, so you wanna when you're let's go down to bam. All right, let's go here. Now, I hope you're noticing in there you're hearing a good amount of my dry signal. Because that's super important compared to, guess I'm gonna have to make that filter again. So bam, quick here, let's put that there, let's run that there. Actually, let's do that again. Bam, bam, no mod there. And let's do so, you know, compared to that, doesn't have much dry signal in it. You see, it's going to be much harder. You got to really have that filter dialed in if you're not going to have any dry signal in there, compared to getting this to cut. What I got on? Oh. That's going to cut for you every time. Even the wah on here. Right? I would prefer to still have some of my dry signal in there, but just like the MXR bass synth, I can't have my dry signal in here. And the beautiful thing about the Enzo X, it has like a built-in 4-channel mixer. Stereo in, right? So it's dry. You have your stereo dry sound, then you have your stereo affected sound. So essentially, I always have my actual bass's sound because for me, that also helps you hear that effect more. And to be honest, let's just be real. If I didn't tell you that was a digital filter, you'd have thought that sound good as any analog filter I've ever heard. And you see, I got 3 of them sitting right here, and I have a plethora of other types of filters, and I've had other filters as well. So, you know, don't think these is the first. But yeah, you know, one of that frequency cutoff and the resonance, keeping that typically around 20 to 30% is enough. Like, usually more than that. You might even use less than that if it's, you know, making you lose body. The more resonance typically in the filter, the more of your bass kind of gets reduced, and the more emphasis it kind of really puts on those upper frequencies a little bit more, because they cut. But you don't want to like super squawky. For instance, like that's a lot. That's a lot of resonance. And it's not really that pleasant of a sound. I know some people, it's a cool I mean, come on now. Like, that's going to irritate the heck out of your sound engineer. What is that thing, that bop bop thing? But you also got things like twin filters like this, and as you can see, typically digital filters. Like all these are digital filters that I have that I showed you, that I've actually played through today. This bass balls here, it's only got one knob, and pretty much this determines the frequency cutoff, right? So you can't really control much. You can add some distortion, but you can't really control much, and I actually was able to get this sound out of the Mercury X. Not this exact sound, because this is an envelope filter. I actually like it as an LFO filter. So it, I know people think I be hyping the Meris pedals, man. Listen, they'll save you a ton of time and a ton of space on your pedal board, even though they are bigger pedals. They definitely have that. Now, somebody asked me, hopefully they still with us, what is the difference between the MXR bass synth and the C4 synth? The MXR bass synth does have better, let's see, because sometimes this is the thing about synth pedals. Each one likes your bass to be EQ'd differently, slightly differently. Like, for instance, the C4 synth likes my bass to be, the bass frequency to be cut, and then to boost the high mids and cut the highs on it so I don't get so much string noise. Let's go back here. Nice clean bass sound. So the C4 synth tracks fine. Like, I don't have tracking issues with it. And I don't even have my fret wrap on, so it's not like the C4 synth doesn't track well. A lot of times people are not playing cleanly. You know what I'm saying? Because any pedal you're not playing cleanly with will not track well. So let's. MXR bass synth pretty much likes the same type of thing. So boost your high mids, cut your lows, cut your highs. So I would say the MXR bass synth is not as flexible. Like, I can get sounds out of the C4 synth. I can't get out of there. For instance, stuff like that. The harmonizer in there is really good, but So the C4 synth is going to have 4 oscillators, right? The MXR bass synth essentially has 3, right, that you can work with at a time. And you can only select one type of oscillator. So if you're going for sawtooth oscillator, you can only go with that for all 3 voices. And then, you have to memorize a few of those secondary functions on here, but you can completely edit the bass synth that's on here from the pedal. The C4 synth, you actually have to use the software. Now, C4 synth also has the benefit of you can download presets. Just like I have a preset pack for it, so those sounds that you were hearing, you can actually just download and put them on your C4 synth and never have to program it yourself. The whole pack is like 47 sounds or something like that, so it's plenty of bass synths in there. You know what I'm saying? So you almost never have to program stuff like the C4 synth, the Future Impact V4, the Enzo X, even the POG 3 if you didn't want to, because they allow you to download presets. And then creators like myself have those preset packs as well. So that would be one of the main differences. The C4 synth also has like 20 something filters and like 13 distortions and overdrives and bit crusher in there. It's a full synth. The C4 synth is a legit full synth, and they just recently did an update where it does track better now. It does track way better. Now the MXR bass synth, I like this expression pedal feature because as you can see, it has 8 presets here, right? So you got the 4 green, then you have the 4 red. I don't use any of the stock presets because I didn't like them. I'm not gonna lie, and I don't have to. So all these are my own personal settings. So I can use the expression pedal to essentially double or even, I would consider tripling it, the amount of presets, because I can have a preset on the heel and then a different preset on the toe. So heel, toe, and I can dial those back where I can mix them. And this way I kind of feel like I'm getting almost like 6 oscillators. And then I'm kind of just mixing them with my expression pedal. Also allows me to do stuff like play bass. Add my little licks in the upper octave and then drop right back down. Or I can do and that's literally just me going from one setting to the next. And it almost feels like you're jumping octaves. So that is one of the my favorite features of the MXR bass synth. You know what I'm saying? Excuse me. Now, you can do things like that with the Future Impact and the Enzo X as well. Like morphing between presets is not difficult. It's just the way they each do it differently. So for instance, the Future Impact V4 VIP, you're going to have to set up flexi controls to control the different parameters that you want to shift, right? And then you can literally just have it morph between those two. And then with the Enzo X, same thing, but you would do it with for instance, the expression pedal. You would set that up to morph different settings. You can set 6 different parameters to just your expression pedal on the Enzo X. So, it's super flexible in that way. I mean, you might even be able to, Yeah, it's 6. It's up to 6 on the expression pedal. And say you're not using the expression pedal, you can use those additional 6 parameters and link them to the modifiers. You can link it to the whole modifier. You can link it to the envelope or the LFOs, the SNH, which is the random, generator, or the sequence. So these pedals are super versatile. And again, like the MXR bass synth can be used for chorus or as an envelope filter. If I just open this up, take all the resonance out, take out all the fade in. Not the greatest chorus, not my favorite at least. Again, my favorite chorus is on the Enzo X. So, all the filters I showed you today, yeah, all the filters I've shown you today also have other features. The Spectrum has distortions and octavers in there, and you can assign that to different LFOs or I think they have a attack and delay and release. Yeah, I think they have an AED-SR in the Spectrum, but I believe it's like presets. You can't like set the exact times all the time. Like the different times, different presets for that envelope section of the Spectrum are going to have different parameters that you can change. So I particularly like the snappy one on there, but Future Impact, has distortions, overdrives, delay, flanger, phaser, all that stuff in there, So even the POG 3, right? I just showed you the filter section, but it does have a chorus, attack, fade in. You can pan the different voices. You can also, you got freeze and glissando in here. Overdrive if you push the input gain there. So Enzo X has, it's pretty much a multi-effects unit. Same thing with the Mercury X as well. So, they aren't just filters. I know I showed you how to manipulate the filters portion of them, but none of these pedals are just filters, and that is just amazing to me because look at the amount of space I save not having to have a bunch of individual filters. Then, being stuck with it being one way. Like even with the POG 3, I don't have to have it as a wah. I got an envelope here as well. You know what I'm saying? So I can also actually have a dynamic envelope filter there as well. So now, when it comes to filter pedals, most of them are going to have way less options. So, for instance, the range here is equivalent to the filter envelope amount on the MXR bass pedal, and it just determines how much the filter opens. So I kind of look at. Matter of fact, I would look at it like I wouldn't even look at it like that. I look at it like a frequency cutoff almost. Yeah, I would kind of look at it like a frequency cutoff. Then you got your resonance here, and you got your rate. The rate is just determining how fast that filter will be oscillating, open and close. You can even change the shape here. If you wanted a saw shape or a ramp up shape, ramp down. And you got your expression pedal for this pedal will also do is like the range. You can have the expression pedal use it like a wah pedal as well. So you got different options with a pedal like this, but it's still severely limited to the space that they can do, because these are analog filters. All three of these. This is an analog filter, and so is this, and they all have much more limited stuff. So on something like this, you actually do get your dry signal. In this and the burst, you actually get your dry signal and the effect signal, and the decay is pretty much the lower part of the frequency, the depth. So if you don't want it to go all the way down to the low sub frequencies, you just bring this knob up. The further up you bring it, the less the higher up the bottom of the filter would be. So it won't be going down into those lower frequencies that you don't necessarily want. The Q on here is the resonance. So Q is also used for resonance sometimes on some pedals. So the more I put of this, the more that squawkier sound I get. And, like I said, you keeping it 20 to 30% is going to give you a nice round filter. And then you have the sensitivity, which is how far the filter actually opens, and it's like this sensitivity knob is like a combination of how far it opens and how much your playing is affecting it. It's like a combination of the two. So this is almost like use this like a frequency cutoff almost. And, just you got to play around with it a bit. But, yeah. The other drawback to the analog filters is if you travel with it and you say you like this particular setting like this, by the time you get to the gig, it's going to look like this. You got to make sure that you reset these pedals. So, especially something like this, that knob moves. So, But yeah, the biggest thing, what's going on, folks? Yeah, you gotta, you get what you need. I like having a good amount of pedals. This is not, this pedal board, this is two separate pedal boards first though. This is my main gigging board here. This is like my auxiliary board when I need to use vocoder and I want to use the Mel 9 Key 9 and C4 synth, this stuff here for different sounds. But this is all I really take to a gig. Even my solo gigs, this is all I need because of the MIDI. So that's the other thing. Having these digital filters, I already got a ton of different filters in one pedal board without having a dedicated filter pedal. So that's another bonus to being in today's time where you don't necessarily have to carry around a million pedals. This pedal board could easily be twice or three times this size with all these filter pedals and preamp pedals. The Tonex ones all actually save me a ton of space. Look at the size of this color box. The color box is a massive, the SGT, they're bigger preamps. And they would take up so much space. Most of this board would be preamps, but because of the Tonex pedals, Tonex ones, I can run these in stereo. They actually are stereo. Them each one is stereo itself, but I like to run two of them. Then you also have like all those preamps in here. Got guitar amps, unlimited preamps and stuff in here. So I say, man, if you're one of those people where you're really stuck on having everything analog, even filters, filters and was like my last holdout for analog. I ain't gonna lie. I love a good analog filter. They are very warm, especially like this blurst, but it just doesn't have the flexibility. I can get just as good of a sound out of that Enzo X, you know what I'm saying? And nobody's gonna know the difference. The same way nobody's going to know the difference if you're carrying around a tube amp or if you're carrying around a solid state amp or if you're not carrying around no amp and you're using amp models. By the time it gets to the crowd, they want to hear what sounds good. They don't really care how you get to it. And ain't like we cheating, it takes skill to program these pedals. It takes skill to have control over your pedal board enough for you to perform with it. So don't knock it. And this might be one of those times where you actually we use like a slower sweeping filter. Let me see. See what I got here. Oh, this the other cool thing about filters. I can't believe I forgot this. Before I even do all that, because that ain't really that important. When you have something like the Mercury X that has amazing filters in it, right? And you don't have to run them, you don't have to just use it on your bass. You can use it on just the affected sound of different delays, reverbs, and all that stuff. So it allows you. Thanks, Daniel. Appreciate you. Appreciate you subscribing. Means the world. Hit that like button for me, folks, if you haven't already. Right? So we're going to go to a few settings here. Like this. So that's actually a filter. There's a filter on there as well that's like making just little small details happen. Well, I mean, not right now. I mean, I'm in the middle of, I'll do something for you in a little bit, you know. I actually did play a bunch in the beginning of it where I just played the whole song. So if you want, you can rewind it live and you'll catch it. If you catch it from the beginning, you'll hear a lot more playing and stuff in there. But, so, or this setting, but you really can hear the filter on the affected sound because it's got that bit crushing, just sweeping, and that's that random filter type thing. I'm gonna freeze that just so you can hear it a bit. And that's literally that pitch shifting that's going on there, the filter, the distortion, the like that bit crushing that's happening there. All that's on the Mercury X. Like that's literally just the Empress compressor. I do have the Color Box V2 tone model on the Tone X1s, but the rest of that literally is the. That's all it is without it. That filter is nasty. So filter doesn't just have to go directly onto your bass sound for it to be super effective. That's literally just on that delay sound. See, it's not on the reverb. You can actually hear the pitch shifting, like, because of that. I do have an octave up on there. You can hear the pitch shifting, and the reverb is clean. Only thing that's dirty and being filtered is that delay. So these little small details is how you create new sounds, not just, for your actual bass synth or your actual bass tone, just how you, take other sounds to another level. Here, I'll give you another example. That filter's creating a lot of that movement in there. That's literally the filter. You know how hard that would be to set up? I would have to rearrange my whole pedal board if I was using analog filters to get that type of thing. Because if I wanted to use a filter for my bass sound, I would have to move it, right? I would have to literally disconnect it from the pedal board, put it in a different place. But because I'm using these wonderful, digital filters, and they sound, like I said, I don't care what nobody say, they sound just as good as these analog ones. By the time you mix it and by the time everybody get to playing, a lot of times the analog filters are not cutting through the way you want them to. I'm not going to lie to you. These, by the time I've taken them out, they do sound good, and they really warm when it's by itself, but it doesn't necessarily cut through the way I want it to all the time. And again, because I have to keep, because they have these knobs that actually change physically when it turns on and off, you know what I'm saying? Or when it's off, that if I change the knob, it's going to be that way when I turn it on. It's hard to keep the same exact dialed in setting with these analog ones, you know what I'm saying? Because I might have it right there and it might be perfect right there, but then I get to the gig and it be right there. And when when you getting ready for your gig, you forget that little bit right there. You forget, oh, that should have been there. Ain't nobody got time for that, man. Y'all get y'all some digital filters. They sound great. I'm not saying all of them now, but they do. There are some really good options. Like again, if you want a pedal that's just going to boost your whole bass rig and just have you on another level, the Enzo X is going to do that, because you can use it for your bass sounds, like your chorus, flanger, phaser. You can use it for pitch shifting, filters, all that stuff, drives, distortion. You can use all that stuff, the Enzo X, for all of that. And you still get your delays and reverbs. So these are my favorite filters right now out of all of them, even the analog ones, because I can do more with them. They sound amazing. And I ain't had a fool. I only showed y'all one. There's 2 more filters in there, and it's a twin filter in there as well. So things to look out for. Now, let's talk about this for a sec. Even on my clean bass setting, I have a filter. So I actually use a high pass filter on my clean bass sound, right? So that and what that does, it cleans up the when you're using a bass amp, right? Your speakers are actually using quite a bit of energy to try to keep up with those sub frequencies that nobody's hearing anyway, and quite frankly just muddy up the mix for the kick drum, right? So I actually high pass my dry bass sound, you know, and what it does is when I do add bass to it from my bass, it adds additional body, but not so much unnecessary bottom and sub frequencies. So this is my bass, right? This is just me adding some low end. It doesn't let it get overpowering. You know, along with the compressor on there, I am running parallel compression on the Mercury X. That, and I'm using the preamp on there as well to just add a little bit of saturation to the sound. But that's way muddier than when I add that compression and the high pass filter and just a little saturation from the preamp. Right, and mind you, I got my bass set super dark, highs all the way rolled off. Bring in the highs. Notice it brought up everything else, but it just tightened that low B string up a lot. See, all of a sudden your bass becomes a lot more clear because you're not having all these extra sub frequencies you don't need, and you're also tightening up the sound with parallel compression. So I highly recommend using filters, not just in the most basic way you could think of, which is like a envelope filter, you know, MXR bass envelope sound. Think of filters as truly part of sculpting your sound. Like an EQ is technically a filter, you know. So think of that. Think of it like, you know, low pass. You're gonna pretty much, you're cutting out that high, the frequency cutoff is cutting off those highs. You know, with a high pass, the frequency cutoff is cutting out low frequencies. And if you want to clean up, if you ever want to just clean up a mix in general with your band or whoever, you know, high pass a lot of those instruments. Like, you know, your saxophone player doesn't need those instruments, and, you know, sometimes doesn't need sub frequencies. You know, the singer doesn't need sub frequencies, you know what I'm saying, most of the time. Depending on, you know, if you got Barry White, you might have to let that thing roll. But if you got you know, keys and different things like that, you want to high pass a lot of that stuff, so you're it's not going to interfere with your bass sound, and it also won't interfere with your kick, and it'll clean up your mixes as well. So I use filters in a lot of different ways, not just squawk, you know what I'm saying? So that's key there. Even when I'm using synth sounds, right? So hear that filter sweeping in there? or even here. That filter, whine. Now if I change that filter setting a little bit, changes the whole sound. Versus so it gets real fast, you know. The reason this pad is so smooth is because of the filter. Versus so all those are different filters, you know. What's going on, folks? Appreciate you chiming in. Feel free to ask questions. You know, we got about another, 10, 15 minutes. And we're going to get out of here. But we're going to recap real quick just so everybody, make sure everybody got a good understanding of the settings that you would need to, most bass filters that you're going to need to manipulate them, or things that affect the sound. So first is that frequency cutoff. That's typically, if you're using a low pass filter, that's going to be the higher part of the filter. And then, and how much you want the filter to open, how far you want it to go up in frequency and sweep down. Now the depth the depth of the frequency, or it typically determines how low the overall filter will dip, in frequency. Resonance is going to determine how much those frequencies sweep, how much that the frequencies in that sweep are going to be emphasized. Then you also have the envelope of the filter. Attack is how, if we're talking about an envelope that's opening, like wah, right? Wah, it's opening, going into a higher frequency. The envelope attack is going to determine how fast that frequency opens, how fast the filter opens to that top frequency. The decay is going to determine how fast it closes, okay? And then the filter envelope amount is going to determine the direction of the filter, whether it opens or closes, right? What else we got? Yeah, that's pretty much the main stuff you need. And then just understand that there's different types of filters. So you have envelope filter, you have an LFO filter, you have like a SNH or a random filter, then you have a sequence filter, and then you have a let's say a controlled filter where you can use like an expression pedal or something like that, where you have to manually open and close the filter with your expression pedal, essentially like a wah. So as long as you can understand those things, you'll be fine. If you want more of a bassier sound, you're going to want to keep that resonance low, and you're going to want to bring that frequency cutoff down enough to where it's staying within that range where it's, effective. The filter is effective on your bass. And then, that attack and decay time will definitely affect the way your filter sounds. So all that stuff plays a huge part. Then from there, you can select different filter sounds. For instance, like I said, the Spectrum has like 26 different filters in there to choose from. But they're all going to be, if you don't understand the settings that I just explained to you, it's not going. None of them are going to benefit you. You're just going to be lost. So the main thing is to understand how the filters are working, and then understand, how they're interacting with your sound. Those are the two main things that I just explained to you. And from there, you just experiment. And I will also say this: if you want, the other little piece to that is, if you want to add, if you really want that filter to be gritty, or you want it to like have some more texture, you start to add things like distortion or overdrive in front of the filter, like so going into the filter, and then that gives the filter something to sweep across. Just like the oscillators, they're pretty gritty without a filter, so it gives the filter something to sweep across. So with your bass sound, if you want your envelope to cut through a little bit more, try adding a little bit of overdrive or distortion to your sound, and then going from there. Also, you want to keep a decent amount of your dry signal in your filter sound as well. And this is something that in synth, you don't need to do that. In synth, if you're doing synth bass, all you got to do is you can let that be 100% the filter. But if you're doing like a bass sound, you definitely want to have some of your dry signal in there to keep a good amount of that bass frequency coming in. Oscillators have a lot more, going on than the regular bass sound. So definitely pay attention to that stuff. If you want the filter, envelope filter, to react more uniformly, so you want it to do things more evenly, you want to add like a compressor either before or after it, or maybe both, and that'll help it react a little bit more normal. Sometimes it can fluctuate with envelope filters. Some days it's because of the volume of your instrument. One day it might be at one volume, the next you come in, you might have turned it up a bit or turned it down a bit, and now the filter is not reacting the same. So pay attention to your volume input of envelope filters as well, and that will definitely keep you happy, keep you using this stuff well. And remember, don't overdo that resonance, man. That is not necessary, and it don't sound good. All right, keep that resonance lower. Like I've never, for a bass sound, it's going to be anywhere, I say 10 to 30% usually is fine. But again, if you're using like these bass pedals, these are already dialed in to that percentage, within the knob. So you can pretty much use it, but keep that resonance lower. It'll definitely give your filter a much smoother, pleasant sound to it. You still need a good amount of resonance because you want that filter to cut through, but you don't want it to cut through in an unpleasant way. And keep a good amount of that the high frequency cutoff, in there. Keep the good amount of them highs in there, or not a good amount of highs, but keep that filter open a little bit more. So you're making sure it cuts through, but it's not cutting through at a harsh frequency. So I hope all that makes sense to you guys. I definitely appreciate you hanging out with me. It means the world to me again. If you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe, hit the hype button. Hit the reactions, all that good stuff. It helps me out tremendously. Also, if you want to support the channel more, you can do that on Patreon, and you can buy all my preset packs on there for the C4 synth, Future Impact V4, the Tone X pedals and software, the Enzo X, Mercury X, the Zoom B6, MS60B Plus, and MS70 CDR Plus. All that stuff is on the Patreon, so definitely check it out. And follow me on all social media at the Bassnagus. I definitely appreciate you guys hanging with me again. Make sure that you hit that like button and subscribe so you can